Excellent. Now with our damage system in place and our health component in place, we can start adding things like a destructible actor and projectile damage. Let's head back to Unreal and let's start setting this up, right? So what I'll do first is I'll create a new actor. So in my blueprints folder, right click, blueprint class, and once again, actor. And I'm going to call this BP underscore damageable actor. So damageable actor, like so. Let's open up the damageable actor. And the first thing that I'll do is I'll add a component. I'll add a BPC health component. And I'll also add a cube. And I'm going to set the cube as my default scene root and then select my health component. Now, if I look to my details, I can see that I have some events. I have my custom undead event and some built-in events that are part of the component system. I'm going to click on the big plus icon next to the undead event, and that'll add an event call, like a receiver call from my event dispatcher event that I added to my health component. And I'll add something very simple here. I'm going to do destroy, and I'm going to destroy actor, like so. So as soon as I die, I'm going to destroy my actor. Hit compile, hit save, and that's it. Now, in order to destroy these actors, I will need to be able to do damage, right? So let's open up my BP base projectile and add some damage to it, some damage events. So first off, select my collision in my components tab, and then scroll all the way down in my details panel and notice that there are also a bunch of events available, similar as I had with my custom component. And I'm going to add a on component hit event. So click on the plus. Also, I'm going to select my collision again. Make sure that under your collision category, simulation generate hit events is enabled. If this is disabled, then none of these events will be called. So make sure that check mark is ticked off. So whenever we hit something, then we can do something, right? On component hit. So whenever we have collision, which is excellent. It's exactly what we need. So what I'll do now is I'll show you a couple of different implementations and things that you can do to make use of our health component and of the interface that we created. So first off, I'll do the simplest implementation. I'm gonna get my other actor, so the other actor that we hit. I'm not gonna get my hit component or my other component. That is if you want to have more specific, um, you know, collision stuff, like specific targets and sub components and sub actors and all that kind of stuff. I'm not gonna use that. You can look at the documentation if you want to. I'm just gonna get the other actor, and I'm gonna check if this one is valid. So I'm gonna do is valid. I'm gonna take the bottom one, and so if this is valid, then we can do something. I'm also going to create a comment here. I'm going to say check if we actually hit something, actually hit an actor, right? BSP level collision will return nothing. So when we collide with our environment, so the walls, the floor, that's in editor created BSP geometry. Now the BSP geometry doesn't inherit from the actor class, so it will indeed return nothing. So then I don't want to do anything. I only want to do something if we hit, you know, an actual actor. It could also be a mesh actor, of course, but we'll deal with that in a moment. Now, if it is true, I'm going to get my other actor, and I'm going to get component. I'm going to get component by class. And the component class type is going to be BPC health component. All right. And of course, I'm going to get a return value. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do is valid. I'm going to check if there is actually a component present. So if so, then I'm going to do something. So I'm going to move this to the side because I know that I'm going to add some stuff here for the sake of illustration. So I'm going to do this. And if that is true, if it is valid, I'm going to do damage. So I'm going to drag from my return. I'm going to call the function do damage. I'm going to set the amount to 10. So if that is valid, I'm going to do my damage like so. So over here, I get and check if we have a valid health component. And then if that is the case, we're going to do damage. There we go. Like so. And I'm going to right click on my amount. I set it to 10, but I'm going to right click and I'm going to promote it to a variable. And I call this damage amount. I'm going to make it a public variable and also add a category projectile like so. Right? I want to be able to control this variable. I don't like hard-coded things, so especially for stuff like that, you always want to have options. All right, good. And then the final thing that I want to do is I want to destroy my projectiles. I'm going to do destroy actor, just as we did in our destructible actor. All right, so that should technically work. So let's find out. Let's hit compile. Let's hit save. Never forget. And then add a BP damageable actor in our scene. Let's scale it up a little bit. Let's add a couple of them. Make sure that they are at a height that you can actually hit. And let's hit play. And now if I start shooting, as soon as I have 10 hits, because I deal 10 damage, they should be destroyed. Excellent. All right. Let's clear my log real quick. All right. So that is working. Excellent. Now, in my implementation here, in my base projectile, I am specifically going to get a BPC health component. Now, this is very specific, but remember that we actually implemented our BPI damageable interface. So let's have a look at how we can make use of our interface directly. So instead of just going BPC health, I want to use my damage interface. So let's do a branch here. So let's add a reroute node, get this, and then get component. And as you can see, you can have get components by interface. So let's use that. And I'm going to look for BPI damageable. I'm going to implement this real quick and use the similar workflow as I have here, but there's going to be a caveat, and I'm going to explain why, what exactly the caveat is. So again, if this is valid, I'm going to take my execution pin here, and I'm going to loop over my get component. So I'm going to create a for each loop. Actually, I'm going to disconnect, so Alt and click the loop body. I don't want the code that we just had to execute. And as the array, I'm going to connect this one. So I'm get components, I get an array, and I'm going to loop over it. And in my loop body, I'm going to get my array element, and I'm going to do damage, like so. And I'm going to do the damage amount. It's going to be my loop body. And once that is completed, I'm also going to do the destroy. So destroy actor, right? So once I've done looping over it, then I'm going to destroy myself. Cool. All right, so if we look, very similar to what we had. So let's try it. So yes, everything is still working. Excellent. However, if I now stop playing, I get some runtime errors. And if I look at my runtime errors, attempt to access damageable actor via property, yada yada yada. Damageable actor is pending kill. So I'm trying to access, if I go back to my code, so I'm trying to still loop, right? The loop is still going, but the do damage can actually cause a destroy actor, if I remember correctly. If I go back to my destroyable actor real quick. Right? If I deal enough damage to cause the death to happen, it's going to destroy my actor here, and that's actually going to cause an error because behind the scenes there's still a bunch of code referencing it and doing all kinds of things with it. So this is not an ideal situation. That's why I use my BPC health component directly, because I'm going to get one and I'm going to do one thing and I'm not going to loop over it. Once it's done, right? Like I don't need my reference to my actor anymore. But in this case, it keeps looping over it, so it keeps the reference to my array, and my array is part of my actor. So that's a problem. And it's actually going to cause crashes. Now, the reason why I added this is just to show you the example of using your interface. So your interface, in the case of my health here, my damage, it's not the best use case for it. It's more useful if you want to have, a way to call functions in a very generic way to a whole bunch of classes or components, right? Preferably that do not destroy, do not destroy themselves. Um, So the reason why this is happening, like I mentioned, is because the do damage actually destroys the thing. Now I could go ahead and go into my BP damage actor, and between my on dead I'm destroy actor, I could, go over here and perhaps see if I can add a delay, right? Add a delay 0.2. Let's hit compile. Let's hit save, and let's see if this still causes a problem, right? Now we're firing, 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 firing. If I now stop playing, I don't get an error, right? Um, that way, or the destroy doesn't happen in the same frame and the same update loop. Now, I don't really want that. I want it to be instant in our case. I'm just gonna get rid of this once again. Um, just keep that in mind, right? Uh, I added this as an example, but in our case, it's not really needed. It's not really relevant because we're always going to use the health component anyway. So I'm not going to do that. So for that reason, I'm actually going to disconnect this. I'm going to move this to the side. Just know that it is possible, right? We've seen how it works and we've seen the caveat. So if you ever need it, that's something that you need to keep in mind. Okay, so let's interface implementation, like so. The final thing that I do want to add here is that in this case, we're working with a component, but say that you don't use a component. Say that you are directly using the interface on our actor. How do you do that? Well, again, very similar. I can get my actor and I can check for does implement interface, like so. So in that case, I can check, well, does this implement my BPI damageable interface? And let's hold down B, add a branch. So if that is true, so if this one was valid and this one is true, then I can do the following. I can get, again, a reference to my actor here, and I can do damage of BPI damageable. So it's going to try to call this, right? It's just an interface call. Even though I don't know if it's on there, but because it's part of an interface, I can just call it. And I'm going to do this, like so, right? And then I'm going to destroy the actor. So destroy actor once again. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit, just a tad. So add double click for the readout node and do the damage like so. Move this to the side somewhat. Right, I'm gonna group this. So add a comment. This is gonna be BPI damageable, like so. Right. If we do not find this, right? So the actor doesn't implement the interface directly. Well, then I'm going to connect my health component here. I'm not going to use this one again, like I mentioned. I'm just going to connect it again, the other one. So that way, we have that interface implementation, and otherwise we're going to use the health component, right? So first going to check, do we have the interface? If so, directly use the interface, and otherwise use the health component. All right. So that way we have seen all three use cases of dealing damage and how we can set this up. All right. So it's important to know that with this loop, don't destroy something during the loop because that will cause issues. You always want to have delays with that kind of stuff for safety, even if the delay is only one frame. So you could basically set a bool here as well, and then end the event tick. The next time the tick happens, then destroy the actor. That's also a safe way to do it. All right. Now, in one of the previous videos, I also mentioned something specific about Unreal having support for damage built in. So I'm also going to briefly show that, just so you are aware of it, and you can make use of it if you want to. So if I have a look at my damageable actor, for example, if I select my root here, if I then scroll down to actor, notice what I'm seeing here can be damaged. What? There's a bool here for can be damaged. What exactly does that mean? Well, say that I now right click somewhere on my damageable actor, and if I go searching for damage, you'll see that I have game, damage, and a whole bunch of things here. Apply point damage, apply radial damage, damage with fall off, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So if I, for example, do apply damage, right, then you can see that I can deal damage to something. The damaged actor, I can have base damage, I can have the instigator, who is dealing the damage, or what is dealing, the event of the damage, the damage causer, who is causing damage, and the damage type. We have some built-in damage types, but you can add as much as you want by creating new damage types in your project. So this is basically an implementation that's already in Unreal, does a bunch of stuff for you. Notice that it also has the little server icon here, which means that it actually is replicated, so it is compatible with multiplayer stuff. Um, so you can make use of this to deal damage if you want to. I would advise checking the documentation first, of course, as always, to make before you make use of this. But just know that it's in there. If I then select my actor as well, and if I have a look here, I'm not sure if I have my actor directly available. Let's see if it's in here. Nope, but I can actually right click here and do on my BP actor itself and do any damage. If I then go and search, there should be event over here under events, damage, event, any damage. I can then also receive whenever something deals damage to my actor, and I can get the damage amount, the damage type, instigated by, so who actually originated the original damage, which can be useful if you have something that spawns additional projectiles, and then those projectiles spawn other projectiles, and then that hits something. You want to know who was the original instigator of it, who was the source of it, right? For like tracking of who dealt damage and stuff like that. And the damage causer can then be the last in line. What was the last object that dealt damage, right? So know that this exists. It's powerful. It's again replicated, so you can use it for multiplayer games as well. Again, we want to have a fully custom solution in our case because we want to go through all the motion and all the implementation stuff and what you would need to do to have your own custom implementation, because I want to make sure that you know how to do that. But just be aware that that is also a thing that is available. All right, cool. So with that in mind, let's move on, and in the next video we'll start adding enemies.